Right, hello and a very good morning to everybody that has joined us this morning for this webinar. We hope it will be very beneficial to you and you enjoy the content that we have here for you today. So just to introduce the webinar, this webinar is delivered under the ICT for Growth programme, which is Kingston upon Hull City Council's programme. We have a series of webinars that are being delivered at the moment, so do keep an eye out for upcoming webinars. We will talk a little bit more about those at the end of this one, but I'd now like to hand over to one of our expert advisors, Des, to talk you through what we have here for you today. Thank you. Sorry, Des, just before I do that, actually, I did want to let everybody know that we've got a chat facility at the bottom of your screen. So if you do have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to post them. You will be on mute by default, but if you would like to ask a question, we will allow a question and answer opportunity at the end of the webinar. But feel free to post any questions during the webinar using that chat facility and we will get to those. Thank you very much, and thank you, Des.
Okay, thanks, Sadia. Great. The subject today, importance of effective CRM. Hugely important for any business that is trading with customers. It is a massive subject, CRM. It is very broad and very deep. Today, I'm going to talk initially about the concepts of marketing and CRM themselves, what it is, what it's about, what you should know, what you should think of, and then going to move through to some things you need to think of if you're selecting and implementing a CRM. Really not trying to go outside of that scope, otherwise we could be here for 2 hours and the concept of a 2-hour webinar doesn't really sync with anyone. So I should just crack on and we'll get into it. So firstly, a little bit about me so you understand my background and my areas of expertise. I'm a 25, 26-year IT professional. I grew up as a business analyst, understanding what technologies can do for companies, what the business case is for them, the value they can deliver, and then going on to sort of scope projects. Before I went independent, I was a FTSE 250 IT director, directing teams to deliver for big companies on everything from service to platforms to integration to technology usage, all of those good things. On the CRM side of things, I've been involved in projects to implement Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, and Zoho CRM, amongst several others. I love CRM projects. They are very exciting, mainly because they touch all parts of a company. I was lucky enough to lead the team who won Microsoft's European Excellence Award for CRM and ERP for manufacturing back in 2014. Outside of that, as a person, I love rugby, played rugby, watch rugby, have a son who plays rugby. Left field for a rugby person. I love vegetable and fruit gardening. I like a glass of wine. I like to think I'm an authority on 80s music. So that's a little bit about me. You don't need to know much more than that. We shall dive straight into CRM. So first big question, what is CRM? So CRM is strictly customer relationship management. There couldn't be anything more important for your business and how you manage the relationship with your customers. It is a process, it's not a system. A lot of people coming into it think, great, we have to have a CRM system. I would warn against that. What you first have to have is a process of how you want to manage that relationship with your customers and who interacts with it, the sales team, the marketing teams, etc. You need to understand how that process for your company is going to work. The process should be owned by the sales team and not the marketing team, as in they own the customer and that relationship. The marketing team have a big input to this, but it is a sales function. So make sure you have an owner for that process. If people don't own the process, then it won't happen. The CRM system itself is an enabler of your CRM process. It's an automation tool. It's something that makes it faster, more intelligent, more in depth, gives value to your CRM process, allows people to do more things that add value rather than more administration. We'll come on to that topic a bit later. It's something you need to be very careful of. Selecting the right CRM is hugely important. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of CRMs out there. 20 years ago, it was a lot easier. There were 4 or 5 big players, and you chose which one matched your business function most closely. I like to think at a high level, there are 5 key steps you need to consider when choosing a CRM. First of those, understand what it is you want it to do. And don't start by looking at CRMs and getting a salesman for that CRM tool to tell you what you should be doing on your CRM. They will make you implement a process that suits their tool rather than one that suits your company. CRMs do, to a certain extent, have generic functionality. I would never advise anyone to code their own CRM process from the ground up, because all you're doing is reinventing the wheel. So the CRM systems out there do have some generic functionality, but you need to understand what you want the CRM to do before selecting which one is the best for you. And that comes down to questions like, how customizable is it? Or is it you just get what it stands up out of the box and that will work for you? Very important questions. How do you integrate it with your marketing tools? So your CRM is all about lead generation. Well, sorry, that's wrong. It is about how we handle our lead generation. So it does need integration with your marketing tools. Otherwise, you're going to have a very manual process of understanding leads and setting them up manually within the tool. 3, you want it to integrate with other systems. Finance, for example. Is it important that your salespeople who use the CRM can see financial information? Can they see invoices? Can they see spend? Can they see the magnitude of orders so they can understand the customers? So do you need to integrate other systems to it? Or are you quite happy just having it as a relationship where you keep your data about the customer? So you need to understand how far you want to integrate it. Can the chosen system scale with your business? Often overlooked subject. So CRMs, like any system, will grow if you're successful. And you don't want to implement a CRM system, then find you've outgrown it and you can't use it any further, and you have to consider doing some major work to re-implement or implement a different system. So you need to understand that. Considerations in that area, very much about licensing. All software is sold around licensing and support. Often the CRMs are sold with different licenses for different users, depending on how much of the system they're going to use. Understanding that before you actually sign any purchase agreement or start scaling it, it's very important, because if you get your licensing model wrong, your CRM can become quite expensive. And lastly, excuse me, but most importantly, ensure it doesn't decay. One thing I've unfortunately seen with quite a few companies is the point where they say, oh yeah, we've implemented a CRM, no one uses it, so we just don't do it. So no point even going there to look at doing a CRM. We tried it, it was no value. That's a company who's let it decay to the point where it doesn't show any value. So they're quite right in what they're saying. Yeah, we don't use it. But CRM is a process. If you're not using the tool, the process isn't happening. So you've got to put time and effort into understanding how you make sure it doesn't. I'll talk a lot later on about the word adoption. And adoption is just the first phase of making sure it doesn't decay, but it's something you have to continuously work at to make sure that system will be delivering value. The worst thing you can do is implement a CRM, go, great, it's in, and walk away and hope everyone's going to use it. I can almost guarantee you that that system will decay. Some of the challenges you'll have in that area will be with your sales team. Your sales team, it is essentially their tool, but you will have to deal with challenges when you're looking at implementing this along. Do the sales team like CRM? Do they see it as effectively a spy in the cab, spying on them? Do they just see it as bureaucracy? Do they see it as needless administration? For me, you need to protect against those sort of concepts. That the sales team should be protected by the CRM. It is a tool that helps them engage with your customers, get more from your customers, and serve your customer better. It is very important to them. Some sales teams I have worked with this have not used it and have walked away. Not teams I've run, but teams I've been doing some consultancy with. And the worst thing that can happen there is if they leave your company, they walk out the door with your customer history. So be very careful about it and do ensure it doesn't decay. Okay, so the CRM process, let's start talking about this as a process, seeing as I've talked so much about it being a process. So where does it start? Like everything in generating business, starts with a campaign. So you're trying to attract business to your company. Hopefully, you'll have worked with companies and marketing teams who segment their customers, look at the customer journey, look at the digital touch points, and how to generate campaigns and get the most from your customers. If you haven't done that, get in touch with us, because it's something we do in our free consultancy with businesses in the area. But it's very much the process of CRM starts with a campaign. Now, ironically, your campaign might not start on the CRM. In fact, it probably won't start on the CRM. The CRM process, the campaign process can be things as wide-ranging as bought lists of opportunities, web registrations. If you've got a website, people registering on your website, showing interest, people visiting your website, if your website's intelligent enough to show you who's been visiting it. Downloads of apps. If you've got an app for your business, people downloading an app shows they've got an interest. That is a lead that can be created from that. If you look at the creation of your app and the data on your app as a campaign, you may well write information on your subject matter expertise and put it on your website and people download it. That's a campaign in itself. You may run, ironically, for what we're doing today, webinars. That's a campaign. But they happen on different systems and need to feed into your CRM, because that becomes a sales opportunity. It becomes a lead, in effect. A lead, something that your sales team, your expert closers of business can act upon. It doesn't mean that lead will definitely mean you're going to win business and the sales team must close that. Leads come in all sorts of forms, and the CRM system and process will help you quantify that lead and understand what actions you're taking lead to the revenue that you're after. So after the lead, if the salespeople have been working on it, it hopefully turns into an opportunity. A lead is very different from an opportunity. A lead can be the call to have an action with a customer. An opportunity is when you've changed it into something that has got revenue and product and delivery discussed around it. Whether it actually happens or not is still up in the air, and things need to happen around it. things need to be visible within the CRM system to say what is happening around that opportunity. But you classify them as an opportunity when they've gone from a cold lead to something that is warm and may well happen. After that, if the opportunity is looking good, we get to quotes. We need to always see what we've quoted customers. If we quote them one thing, then come back in 6 months and say another thing, that can be very bad for your business. Trust is everything within business. You can see within this sales cycle, within the CRM process, I've put in yellow these 4 things. That's because I see them exclusively as the sales team. Red, campaign, very much within the marketing team. But from the campaign through lead, opportunity and quote is very much a sales function. After that, we get to order. Ordering can span the sales team, but it usually goes into a different team. Taking orders, processing orders, making sure they're right, making sure we understand when they're going to be paid, the terms, etc., etc. So the orders need to go on there. Basically, if you're managing your relationship with your customer, you need to see what they've ordered historically. If you don't understand that, the customer feels that the understanding of them as a customer is very low. And I'm sure we all feel that if a company we interact and pay doesn't really understand how we interact with them, it's not really a call to stay as a loyal customer. So I would highly advise that company to be visible. And it's all about delivery. Some companies do not put details of their delivery into their CRM. For me, it's hugely important because successful delivery of your promise is as much an important customer interaction as anything else you do. If you keep your promise and make that customer happy, your sales team can use that information from the CRM to talk the customer back through what's happened and make sure they feel very warm about their interaction with your company. Finally, there's that option we talked about, invoices. It's often not the easiest integration to get your invoices. You can do it manually, but it's good to be able to see in the invoice the value of that customer to you. Are they someone who comes once every 3 years and buys something very small, or are they a repeat business customer who is growing in value? Therefore, you need to put more time into nurturing them and keeping them and make sure they don't churn as a customer to your organization. In doing the CRM process, one thing we do here in our team is a lot of exercise around mapping your digital touch points. As you can imagine, in that cycle from campaign right round to invoice, there are a lot of digital touch points with the customer, and understanding those before you buy a CRM or into negotiations is massively important. One thing we do is mapping your touch points around awareness, which is, what is it that you do? The evaluation, how do customers evaluate your product? What touch points are there in delivery of that product? And what touch points are there in realization and recognition once you're delivering that product, people are using it and the feedback? So do reach out to us if it's something that you want help with, marketing and understanding. It's something we've got a lot of expertise in. Okay, moving on. Now, depending on how large you are and how clever you want to get with your CRM, some companies do this, and I quite like this. This is called Horizons, and you will have within your sales process different horizons. And when I say horizons, I'm talking about, is this a customer who may buy in 9 months and there's only 10% chance? Are they a customer who's likely to buy in the next 3 months and there's a 50% chance? Are they customers who may buy in the next week and there's a 99% chance it's going to happen? Within those buckets, as a business, you should really understand how much value is in each horizon. You may drill that down into individual product horizons, or you may have it for all your products. So for example, your horizon 3, your far away horizon, may say within this horizon in the CRM, we've got £50,000 worth of business, which is great. We might only win 10%, which means we're going to get £5,000 of that. But you will know from what turnover you aim for how much business should be in Horizon 3 if you are going to meet your targets, based on what percentage conversion you think you'll get from Horizon 3. The same happens with the other horizons. Horizon 2, more likely to happen. It might be 50% likely to happen. If you've got a lot of business sitting in your Horizon 2 at 50%, for example, if you have £20,000 in there of business and you're likely to win 50% of it, that's £10,000 that's probably going to happen. Likewise, you can see how this works now. Horizon 1, it's 99% likely to happen. There's £10,000 in there, you're going to get most of that. So this is about using the CRM to understand the flow through of revenue for your business and be able to plan and adjust for it. For example, if your Horizon 3 bucket is very low, you know you need to put resource and time into that Horizon 3 and then let it mature through Horizon 2, Horizon 1. Whereas if your Horizon 3 is absolutely overflowing and you've got nothing in Horizon 1, there are different actions you'll need to take. It may lead to a cash flow issue, but there are actions you need to take, and they, through CRM, allow you to see and adjust accordingly, rather than going off pure instinct, people's gut feeling, which is often wrong, and instinct doesn't allow you to run your business in a way where you can adjust yourself quickly to different circumstances. CRM tools do help with that. Okay. Well, you can't see the heading there. So this one is actually, the heading does say dashboarding. So just one question I usually say to teams about this. If you're sailing an oil tanker, would you be happy to do it without instruments? Of course, the answer is no. I won't ever have to do that. CRM, if you take it that your business is an oil tanker, it takes a long time to turn around and adjust. Your dashboard from your CRM, as you can see, this is a Microsoft Dynamics CRM dashboard that I've picked up. But most, 99% of CRMs will have dashboarding functionality. You can see the sales pipeline there in the funnel chart. That's very much what we're talking about horizons. You can see there that they've got a very healthy far horizon, and their challenges will be that middle green section and the lower blue ones, because they're very thin, and the company will be able to take action in that area. So your dashboard can be configured to show you anything that is important. You may be interested in what leads are generating opportunities by the campaigns that you've done, which is great. Feedback on campaigns is massive, it's huge. What are the things that are calling customers to action with your business? Some campaigns will be very successful, some campaigns will not. But seeing how much effort was put into a campaign into opportunity is massively important to your marketing team. And the better your marketing team are in generating leads and opportunities for salespeople to close, the better your business will do. You may there's other things you can have in there in the dashboard. Activities. You may want to ensure that all your salespeople have a lot of activities, are doing the follow-up. Someone, for example, I've had people work for me who are brilliant at emailing all the time and terrible at phone calls. Phone calls in sales are usually far more effective than emails. So you can start seeing which of your sales team has which attributes in the way they work. They may find that a little bit awkward, but I will encourage it. It's what they call learning opportunities in the most possible. If you can help them be more successful by understanding what they're doing, you'll get more out of them. As long as they're open to that, they will grow as well. If they're closed to that, then you've got different challenges. Other things you can have in dashboards, excuse me, you can see how many new customers you're getting. If churn is massively important, you can see how many customers you got and when they're leaving and when they're not buying, when did they last buy. And one last thing on dashboards. The dashboard is hugely important. Use them in meetings. Don't just use them for sitting at your desk and looking at it and getting a few ideas. You know, if you've got sales meetings, marketing meetings, delivery meetings, use the dashboard. There's nothing better than facts to allow people to understand and think about how we do things differently, how we do things better, what things aren't working. The CRM is such a positive tool in that. It's not a reactive tool. It allows you to proactively model where you are, where you want to go, what's working, what's not working. Dashboards, wonderful things. Okay, so that's quite a lot about the concept of CRM and what it's about, and a little bit about sort of best practice. So I want to kind of move on a little bit and talk about how far do you integrate and how do you integrate and how do you select your CRM systems. So we've talked about this already. Things you need to think about. Does your CRM process include the need to see invoices? That's a huge decision for you because your invoices will naturally be held in a CRM. They'll be held in a financial system for the right reasons. Unless you've got a big ERP solution that includes integration into CRM, you will have to get some integration to get those invoices in there. Or if you're low volume, you can push them across manually. Does your CRM process include the need to see contract terms? If you've got complex customers, one of the companies I work for, the complex in their contract terms for discounts, for volumes, etc., that needed to be met to hit certain pricing terms. You really do need, if you're that complex, you do need the contract terms in there so that the salespeople can see it when they're prepping for meetings. The CRM system is a treasure trove of resource for salespeople preparing for meetings.
Yes. Apologies for the interruption there, but I just wondered if you're able to switch off your video, as the audio is being a little bit slow and it might help to do that, as much as we'd love to see you.
Okay. That's my video on.
Thank you. We'll see how that goes. Thank you very much.
Okay, do shout up if I'm not coming across well. Going back to how far do you integrate? Do you sell online? If you have a massive online channel, do consider how you're going to integrate the sale on that into your CRM. If it's a question you need to consider, because if it's online and it's B2C, business to customer, and the customer only buys once in a blue moon, then maybe not integrated. But if you're business to volume customers, people who repeat business, people who you can contact and help sell more, you've got a sales process with, then do consider how you integrate onto your own online capability and information. Do you send samples out? Just a thought. I have worked for businesses that send samples out, high value samples, and sometimes you want them back, or sometimes you need to make sure salespeople are following up on that sample to make sure the investment that your company has put into getting the sample to them and making the sample is turning into sales. Okay, designing your CRM process. And the important thing in this title is the fact that it's overlaid into a CRM system. It's not a CRM system where you go, right, what can we do in here? It's about your process being overlaid into a system that can do great things for it. So my first piece of advice, do not make it over complex. CRM systems and CRM sales, people who sell CRM systems will tell you just how much it can do. They will go into reams of information about what it can do. And the worst thing you can do is be hooked in by their sales technique and go, oh, crikey, that sounds good. We could do that. Oh, we could do that. And a lot of those things will be things you don't do now. If the things you don't do now, put them on a list. They're not for now. And that list can become a backlog of things to be considered at the right time for whether you could implement it. It's great to know a system could do those things, but stick to your CRM process, implement that, automate that, make it efficient, get the information, get the dashboards, make that whole CRM process sing before you start getting into complexities and cleverness. Define your customer hierarchy. So, customer hierarchy. One of the most important things within planning your CRM system. So, your hierarchy, if you think about it, is how your customers work. If the people you sell to have one head office and 25 regional offices, they have different individuals in different offices, but the buying decisions are in certain places. Individuals work at individual offices and not at head office. You need to understand and map that out on paper, on a whiteboard or whatever, to understand how you would navigate to get to the right people within your CRM. Lumping everyone in, if it's complex, just under one customer, will end up being very large and very confusing and make it hard to see the data. You're wanting to understand where people are, what they do, whether they're influencers, whether they're purchasing decision makers, where they reside in the organization, etc. That's massively important to you. If you don't have that challenge, you're very lucky. Your hierarchy will be a lot simpler. You can, have as simple a hierarchy as customer and individual. So that's the individual who works for the company, and then a little bit about them. So think about that. Do map it. Do understand it. Do create a taxonomy. Wonderful word. Every time I use the word taxonomy, people usually look at me sideways. Well, majority of people look at me sideways and say, what on earth are you on about? So taxonomy is just a naming convention for the system. So you're going to have entities in there: buyer, influencer, director, finance, contact, etc., etc. The more complex your customers, the more complex that naming convention needs to be. But the reason you create it is to keep things consistent across the system so that people can understand it. If people set it up in an ad hoc way, you'll soon find that your data in there becomes hard to read and, more importantly, hard to report on. So do create that wonderful taxonomy naming convention that works for your business and make sure people stick to it. Consider, this is for your sales team. Your sales team will say, oh, you just created me lots of admin time. I need to be selling. My time is all about selling. It's all about selling. It's again, you'll know your team are willing to put in. They should. Getting that balance right is something you need to consider and try and get right for your organization. And lastly, on this section, how do you keep the value of your data high? A system that has poor value data will deliver poor value. A system that has high value data, as long as you're using it well and know how to extract it, should give you high value. When I say keeping the value high, you will get people putting duplicate information into systems. It will become out of date. Companies going bust, companies merging, etc., etc. So do consider how you're going to keep that data high. Some of the bigger users of CRM will set up what's called a master data team, an MDT, and it may be a part-time role during the week, maybe one day a week. They look at the data, they run reports on the data to see how many dupes there are, how many pieces of data haven't been touched for over a year, etc., etc. And they'll get back to the owners of that data just to say, hey, have a look at this data, have a think about it. But it keeps it clean and keeps it high value. That's very important. Lastly on this section, one thing to consider, do you need your CRM to be mobile? Is your sales force out on the road and the reaction time or frequency of your sale is very quick? Therefore, they haven't got time to get back to the office, write up the report, enter into the CRM, etc. If they need to move very quickly and they're on the road, you may need to consider your CRM being mobile. But most CRMs nowadays do have a mobile app linkage to it. Oh, blimey, I did put this one in yesterday as well. Gamification. What a wonderful word, gamification. So it's something that a lot of CRM people will encourage, purely because the nature of the salesperson is that they like to be the best. They like to be the top of the league. They're challenged. If your salespeople aren't challenged by being good at what they are, they're not really in the right role. So a lot of CRMs will have what's called gamification. It's the league tables of salespeople. How well are you doing? How many leads are you warming? How many ones are you converting? Etc. etc. It's a bit Marmite. Some people like it, some people hate it. But it's worth considering whether you can create a competitive edge within your sales team through gamification in the CRM. Have a look at it. Most of them have it. Okay. Integrating your CRM with marketing. As we said at the start within the process, everything starts with marketing. They're the campaign creators. They're the people who are targeting your products and people who will be actually managing your products to say, these are the products we sell and how we sell them. So it starts with the creation of leads, and marketing is responsible for creating leads. If your marketing's not good, you will not create leads and your salespeople will struggle. Sales CRM systems don't create leads, but they can identify opportunities with existing, that's the important word there, existing customers. You do want to integrate your marketing function with the CRM for new leads. That's massively important. In your organization, you have various systems that can and do create leads. Mail shots and campaigns. You'll have ways of mail shotting. 99% of companies do. They are all leads in essence that need following up in sales. So that needs integrating. I had a good question yesterday about integration of mail. It is very, very commonplace within CRMs nowadays. Obviously, if you use Microsoft Mail, don't go and buy a Google CRM system because it will be set up for all of Google's configuration. But do check that out, how that integrates. It's native, and if you're emailing people, it is a point of contact, a digital touch point with your customer that needs to be in the CRM. Website visits. If you have an intelligent website that's got the ability to understand who's visited your website, then they become digital touch points. Depends on the culture of your company. If someone visits your website, are you happy phoning them going, hello, we see you've been on our website? That's a decision for your company. Article downloads. A lot of people will write an article. If I was selling CRM, I would probably put CRM articles out all over the place and watch who downloads them. If they download them, they're probably interested. I would then have a call to action within my CRM for the sales team. Webinar attendance. kind of ironic for today. You attend a webinar, that will probably go into someone's CRM for chasing, and they'll probably contact you. But that's something, if you're doing webinars, it's great for generating leads that can go into your CRM. Also, within your website, contact us buttons. You know, they need to go have a call to action within the sales team. So if someone's saying contact us on the website, integrating that into your CRM so that someone gets a notification, Bob Smith's buttons needs to be contacted, he wants to buy more buttons, is a great call to action within the CRM. Okay, well, another thing to consider, and this is very important. If your CRM process works, can you expand your CRM system? The traditional question about expansion has been on-prem versus cloud. Certainly not the question it used to be. Most CRMs are now selling cloud options. That means your system will be administered, looked after, and will have capacity to expand its storage, etc., very easily in the cloud. You won't have to have an expert in your team who knows how to technically administer your system. If your company is not comfortable with the cloud, and some people aren't, if what I call the Coca-Cola recipe companies, people who have secrets to their product that they would not share, some of their senior execs do not trust the cloud. You can go on-prem. Most CRM companies still offer on-prem, but the majority are the cloud nowadays for the obvious reasons. Understand the add-ons, or what they'll refer to as the ecosystem for your chosen CRM platform. Ecosystem is just the number of things you can add on a connector to that will allow you to do different things. It can be add-ons for your telephone system, add-ons for your website, add-ons for contact books. It can be all sorts. But do, when you're talking to CRM providers, understand their ecosystem, their costs, their capability. One thing I would caution with add-ons is do too many of them. When you come to upgrade, i.e. the provider says, new version out, you have to move to it, moving all those add-ons can just add complexity. Hence, I go back to what I was saying earlier, keep it simple. Understand their licensing model, define your user roles. The user roles and licensing costs will be different depending on where they access in the system. Understand that, understand what data their role needs to see. Break down the rollout process into phases. Minimal viable product, MVP. Identify what you need to get it up and running and get it up and running. Do not create a monster of a project that will make people go off it, get tired of it, wane on their interest and their energies for it. Get your minimal viable product in place and gather the energy around it and keep it positive. Try and fix your budget and timeline if you're going through a supplier. If you don't, it can run out. A lot of CRM providers nowadays will say, okay, if we define the MVP, we will say we will do it for this fixed budget, no extras, within this time. It's a great way to get a CRM in and get it done. You'll see lots of functionality within CRM systems. Use Moscow, i.e. must have, should have, could have, and would have if nothing else is happening. And list the functionality according to those categories so that for your minimal viable product, it's just the M's, the must-haves. After that, if things are going well and you feel that you can get more, look at the should-haves. The could-haves and the would I only do it if I have to. Don't really worry about them, but do break down the functionality you want into those categories. Adoption. This is the most important word in CRM. Adoption's all or nothing. If adoption's nothing, don't do the project. It is about all, and it's not easy. Different users have different thresholds of change. For the ones who love change and see the value in your project, as soon as you let them go, yeah, they'll be in there, they'll be filling their boots, they'll be doing everything. But there'll be other people who are skeptical, cautious, scared of technology, don't want to show themselves up, etc. Make sure you train them well. Make sure you help them with any problems during rollout. Introduce them to the what and the why so they can buy into the whole concept. Do training overviews regularly. Make sure you understand each job role and what they should be doing within the system. Have floor walkers when you roll out that can help the people who are less positive about change, because they're the ones you want to capture. If you can get them working with your CRM and you can monitor them and help them and get them over that hurdle, you will have adoption. One thing I'll say about adoption is continually monitor and continually retrain. Adoption's not a thing you do for 3 months and then go, great, we're adopted, let's walk away. It is continuous. You need to make sure it is continuing to deliver value. Use dashboards. You can have specific dashboards just purely for adoption. Means you can see who's using it, who's creating what, who's not. Maybe not share them across the team to humiliate people, but the person responsible for adoption should have dashboards to see how it's going. Lastly, quite controversially, you can put CRM in people's personal objectives. Some people like that kind of stuff, some people don't. But it is an objection, a chance to say, in your job role, you must be using CRM, and we'll help you do that. Okay, so in summary, winding up, just going back over the 5 key points. Define what you want your CRM to do. Define your marketing activities and how they link to sales activities. Define what other systems you need to feed data into the CRM. Understand the costs associated with scaling your CRM. And then it's all about ownership of the CRM system and adoption. Step through those, understand them. It's the highest level guide to helping you through this. More than happy to speak to anyone who has further questions about it. But for me, that's the end of my introduction to CRM. As I said at the start, it's a jet. I could go on for hours and bore you all silly with it. So anyone who wants a deeper dive, do get in touch. Thank you. Over to you, Sadia.
Thank you very much, Des. Some very useful knowledge and tips for us to take away there. So yes, thank you so much for all of that. I can see that we have a question in the chat box. I'm just going to have a quick look at that. So Des, did you want to have a look? We've got a question from Carl. Once you've done all of the above, how do you go about reviewing and selecting an appropriate system and seeing through all the marketing spin, as there is a huge plethora of options?
Okay. I'll go back to putting my business analyst hat on. And as a business analyst, everything is a spreadsheet and everything has a score and a weighting. For me, it is about understanding what you want to do as a business and saying whether that is, scores 3 for must happen, 2 for should happen, 1 for could happen, and then giving it a weighting to say how important it is if it doesn't happen, and then multiplying that out to give you a score that says that functionality is important. Now, some of the functionality you're looking at, because the salespeople will give you so much functionality in trying to prove that their system is amazing, you need to identify, it's important to identify the pieces of functionality that you don't want as it is the ones that you do want, because you will probably only use 30 to 40% of the capability of that system. If you use 100% of that system, you'll be the first one I've ever seen do that. So it is about scoring what you want it to do. And with the salespeople, if they're bamboozling you and saying, yes, it can do this, you keep going back to saying, no, I want it to do exactly this process. Can you show me how it does? Don't forget that. That's what the salespeople are there to do. They should be able to demonstrate that. If they can't demonstrate that, there's a reason why. I hope that answers your question.
I can see, Carl, you have typed something further. Where do you go to find all the systems available? Is there a good list? to work with, a matrix of system capabilities?
There are good lists of CRM systems out there, various ones. Google or Bing search CRM systems and you'll get hundreds back. You will find articles that recommend the top systems. It's very difficult to find anyone who's supplying, here's a functional by functional comparison of systems. That's the bit that you will struggle to find. It is really about finding, you probably will start with a target budget. As long as that's realistic, it's going to segment which people you're looking at. It is about keeping it simple. If you're going to implement something with a partner, the more complex you make it, the more expensive it will become, no matter what system it is. So, be careful and scope what you want, because that will define price. And have the 30-minute webinar meetings with the suppliers where you've supplied to them beforehand, saying, this is what I want to see it do, and then allow them to say what the extras are at that. And you can soon get a feel for which ones will suit what you want.
Thank you very much, Des. Thank you, Carl, for the questions as well. If there is anything further that you would like to ask, and that this applies to all other attendees as well, if there's anything further you'd like to ask, please do leave a message in the chat box and we can come back to it before we close the webinar. Or if you would like to talk to Des online, again, please do feel free to leave a message in that chat box and we will come back to it and get Des to get in touch with you outside of this webinar. So as part of sort of closing up the webinar, there are a couple of things I'd like to bring to your attention. We have got a very good support program running at the moment called Digital Catalyst. It is run under the ICT for Growth program, similar to the same program that these webinars are being run under. And it's a really good opportunity for businesses like yours to obtain independent advice, impartial advice from expert advisors that we have on hand who are waiting to work with you on a variety of digital technology projects. So we, firstly, on the slide that we've got up at the moment, there's just a list of upcoming webinars, so do keep an eye out for those. On the slide after, Des, if you don't mind just flicking over to that one for me, please. There it tells you where you can register your interest for the ICT for Growth programme. So the website is growmysme.co.uk/inquire-now. You will be able to register your interest for the Digital Catalyst programme. On the next slide, Des, we've got that's the programme that I've mentioned, Digital Catalyst. So you can access that support. It will take you through a one-to-one consultancy program, which will provide digital benchmark to start with, moving on to export support that's tailored to you and your business needs. So that will end with an action plan for going forward, and our experts can also provide you with support around brokerage and, ensuring that you get on to technology support, technology provider support as well, and help you in that sort of selection. In a sort of a nutshell on the next slide, it gives you an overview of what the offer is. So, I'd really encourage you to take a further look at this and see if there are any projects that you have in mind that our experts could work with you on, and, get in touch with us about those. On this next slide, we've got a list of some of the example projects that we can work with you on, but as it says there, they're definitely not exhaustive. So if you've got another digital technology project in mind that you'd like support with, then do get in touch with us and talk to us about that, and we'd be more than happy to take you through what support we could provide you with. On the next slide, we've got an overview of some of the challenges that that adopting digital technology can have. And here we've got some outcomes that the support can sort of have. So real and lasting impact there. You can see on the list we've got, growth for your business, attracting and retaining staff. So all these benefits, and there are many more as well. And again, if you get in touch with us, we can talk to you about what support you need and what the benefits and outcomes of that will be. And then I think, Des, there on the last slide, we've got the details, the contact team's details for you. So if you want to call us and talk to us, the telephone number is there. If you prefer to email us, or you want to visit the website to have a look initially at what support is available, find out a little bit more, then please do so. Just going back to the chat box, thank you, Col. You mentioned it's been really useful today. We're pleased to hear that. And you are asking what the eligibility criteria is for one business support. I can send that across to you via email after this webinar. You can also find that on the Grow My SME website, but I will send that over to you shortly, so please look out for that. Are there any questions that anybody has? I would also like to mention that we can take you off mute at this point if you would like to ask Des a question, rather than type a question in the chat box. So we'll stay here for a few minutes in case there are any more questions. But as part of closing the webinar, I've got a short poll for you that we launch at the end of all our webinars to understand how useful the webinar has been for businesses that have attended. So I'll launch that poll now. Please do answer the questions before you leave, and anything else you'd like to know, do get in touch with us. And a very big thank you again for attending today, and a big thank you to Des as well for your time to talk to us about this topic.
Thanks for the opportunity, Sadia. I could talk all day about CRM.
So I'll leave that poll on the screen for a couple of minutes, and Des and I will be here for a couple of minutes as well. Had a message from Heidi, Des, saying brilliant and very informative. Thank you for that, Heidi. That's great to know.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you for the message, Cole. Yes, we're pleased it's been really useful for you, and look forward to talking to you about the further support that's available to you.
Thanks, Cole.
I am going to end that poll now. Thank you for those who have responded to the satisfaction questions.